All right, everybody, welcome to the Quiet Warrior Show. You know me, Tom Dutta, like butter. We're back again. And I got to say, and I got to do some bragging here on your behalf because you've made this show very popular. I put on the screen here for those who have the video. In the last year and a half, we've been rated by FeedSpot out of California, the #2 top CEO podcast. We're also in the top 10 Canadian leadership podcasts. And million podcasts, I didn't really know they existed, but they have said, hey, Tom, you're in the top 100 storytelling podcasts. And that's internationally, so across their database. So why are we doing that? Well, for a couple of reasons, because of you. So I want to thank you. Please give the show a like and get the word out there. But also it's because of him. And you can't see him yet, but he's going to come on, our guest. And our guests are high quality people. And it's what makes the show very engaging. Now we're booked out for the next 3.5 months. Every week the studio is full, and we have a wait list for people trying to get on the show. So it's a nice problem to have for me. But again, thank you everyone for making this as good as it is. Now, would you like to know a bit about our guest from the inside out? And if you're nodding, yeah, Tom. Even if you're not nodding, I can't see you. But I'm going to set this up here. We'll edit out these little nuances later once we reproduce this for release. But we are live on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, and X right now. So hello, everybody out there. So stand by. So what would it be like to know our guest from the inside out? Here's a question I don't ask often enough, not to my guests, and honestly, not to myself. When did you stop being honest about who you actually were? I'm not talking dishonest in obvious sense, but most leaders I know are good people. They work hard. They care about their teams. They show up. But there's a different kind of dishonesty that happens quietly over a career. You start performing the version of yourself that got you promoted, the confident one, the decisive one, the one who doesn't let them see you sweat. And after enough years of performing that version, you start to lose track of the real one. My guest today, he knows this story from the inside. He spent 30 years in tech, navigating companies that were constantly being acquired and reorganized, rising through the ranks while privately asking the question that follows every promotion for people who are paying attention. That is, why are they trusting me with this? Now, he started his career young, talented, and by his own honest account, more than a little arrogant. He didn't hide it, and a mentor eventually looked him in the eye and named it. And what you see is confidence. Other people are experiencing is something else entirely. Now, that could have been the moment he shut down, but instead, it was the moment he woke up. And what followed was 3 decades of navigating one of the most volatile industries, in his opinion, on the planet, and surviving 2 executive layoffs, sitting on the other side of those same decisions many times, and eventually walking away from a successful corporate career to build something new from scratch. The Leadership Studio, a coaching practice built not on borrowed frameworks or academic models, but on something far more valuable, his own failures. Every misstep cataloged, every hard lesson converted into something that helps leaders he now works with be better than he was. That phrase, be better than I was, is the whole philosophy I see. And I think it's one of the most powerful, quietly powerful ideas in leadership today. And his name is Crispin Thompson, and he is a global leadership coach. He's based in San Antonio, Texas. This is the Quiet Warrior Show. I'm your host, and we get started right now. Welcome to the show, Crispin.
Thank you, Tom. Happy to be here.
Happy to be happy with you. So what was it like sitting back listening to a little bit of you rolling off my tongue?
I think, first of all, I think I sound better maybe than I would have described myself. So I appreciate that. But, you talk a little bit about this beginning phase of my career where I was young and I was talented and I think these days I would say promoted maybe quicker than I should have been in those times. And that person getting in my face and saying, listen, no one wants to work with you. You've got all the talent in the room, but but you're not going to be in the room if no one wants you there. That I still feel that like a gut kick today. And it's I'm talking about it's 28 years later, 29 years later from when that happened. And I still feel it like it was yesterday.
And I'm going to release you from that pain, that gut kick that you still feel today for a minute while we set up to do something that is different about on my show. And I'm going to ask you this question now. When would you like to go into Plato's Garden and tell some stories?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So I'm going to change a view and set this up here. So everybody stand by while we get ready to go into Plato's Garden. What it would be like to weave a narrative and learn deeply about our guest story. So welcome to Plato's Garden, Crispin, and our audience. Now, Plato's Garden, just to explain this, it's on the screen here, but you can hear it too. Plato was an Athenian philosopher during the classical period in ancient Greece, founder of the Platonist school of thought, the academy, from the Greek word academia, apparently the first institution of higher learning in the Western world. Now, you can see a picture there, Crispin. It's Aristotle and Plato. And these guys were kind of like, hey, let's walk and talk and let's have thoughts about our thoughts and create new meanings to things. Well, that's what we're going to do today, and you won't even know it. As we dialogue, I'm going to weave us through three areas. And this will set the influences of context of different things you're going to tell us. So, for example, one, we'll go macro. What was happening in the world around you that may have influenced your public works? And this can come right from the beginning of life. And two would be mezzo. What was happening in the industry or sector where you did your public work or where you do it? And the last one, my favorite, it's about you, the man, micro. What was happening in your personal life that may have influenced your public work? So let me get that off the screen there. And we're going to set this up with what I call setting the scene before we dive into some of these questions I have. So, Crispin, we've learned a bit already from my intro, but you built a career helping leaders see themselves more clearly. But I want to start before you got into coaching in the leadership studio, before any of the frameworks evolved. I want to start with a young guy in his mid-90s who was good at his job, knew it, maybe a little too well. Just take us there for a moment. Who was that guy? Describe you.
Yeah, so, the bulk of my career was at HP, but for me, it was a bunch of different companies. I started with a company called Vanstar. And I say started, it wasn't my first job out of school. I definitely say it was my first good job out of school, but it wasn't my first job. And they were a reseller, right? They were kind of a systems integrator, reseller, growing pretty rapidly, like everyone was really in the mid to late 90s. And then, of course, later they got acquired by someone else who got acquired by Compaq, who got acquired by HP, right? So my 25 years at HP was a bunch of different companies and a bunch of different ways. And when I still wasn't even sure what I wanted to do with my life. I was out of school. I had studied history, so clearly maybe tech wasn't where I was leaning toward, but this company Vanstar was offering me stability, not in terms of job or career, but just like predictability, because I was in more sort of retail type things. I was a manager at Best Buy at the time, which was fine, but it wasn't no nights, no weekends. Like everything was kind of dictated by them. And originally it was just a job, right? It was just a job that I felt like I could do. It was going to pay me, money was fine, but the predictability was really something I could have life with. And then I got in and they were still hiring like crazy, big classes coming in, every month. And the opportunities were there if you were willing to kind of say, I want to do this, or just prove yourself. And I think at that phase of the career, something that this was a hard thing for me to shake later, was at that point, you were just good at your job. People would notice and they would come to you with a promotion.
Let me just clarify something too about you. So we're trying to get back into the guy in the 90s. Mm-hmm. Just roughly, how old were you at that stage of your career?
Right at 21.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
Hey, Crispin, we are live, and as I said, we'll edit out some of the nuances. I have to turn on a light in the studio. It's a RGB light, so just hold on while I add some color.
No worries.
We're going to fix that right now. Hang on. Okay, I'm back, and as we see, we added some color. Not that you're not colorful enough. I was on a podcast this morning. I usually don't do this, but I was being interviewed by somebody else, and I just had those guys off the. So you look marvelous, and now we are ready to keep going. So it's really interesting because you said 21, and when you took me back, and this is storytelling, everyone. So I was 21, and that was my first job as a manager. You kind of, I got right back in my mind to what was I like. And manager at 21, I had a bit of an ego, and I thought I had it all, and I was driven. But that was me, and there's definitely a connection about seeing ourselves back, what we look like from today. So let's get into Plato's. Going to go into micro. The man, you mentioned a mentor. At least I researched that in your information.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of got in your face and told you the truth. That what you saw as confidence, others were experiencing is. I used the word arrogance, which is what you wrote. And then you said it was a gut punch moment. What was it like to actually hear that? And what made you choose to listen rather than deflect?
Well, I think, first of all, I had a lot of respect for this person. They seemed really polished and put together, and were able to handle themselves in ways that I wanted to myself emulate or aspire to. So I think that was the starting point. But to be honest, if I had heard that maybe even as little as 6 months before, I don't think it would have been ready for it. I was still too full of myself, too amazing. Just ask me, right? That was kind of I knew exactly how good I was, for better or for worse. And so the respect of the individual, seeing how they carry themselves, and maybe as hard as it would have been to break through that shell, the moment I was starting to pick up on cues that how I was answering questions, how I was posturing, the fact that it was posturing was there. And of course, let's be honest, like whenever someone is like that, there's always like insecurities behind that. The reason that they project so hard is because maybe they're doubting whether they should be. And I'm sure that was part of it for me, that I had, for every promotion, every new thing that came to me, I was like, yeah, this is amazing, but
so you were,
might be a fail now.
Yeah, so I mean that's really a key thing. And by the way, everybody, you see, I'm going to change the shot on the screen so you can see the background. Just read off the wall what that says there for the audience who are listening. What does it say there?
The Leadership Studio.
Yeah, so I mean, I think we're going to honor you about one thing that in the story we've learned so far. You coach other people. So I want to share something with you because we're riffing here that it was about age 31 when I got my first coach. And Crispin, I didn't want to coach. And I say this openly now. I had an ego. I was at the top of the company, CEO. My first CEO role, it was a Canadian company, but it had an American board, and I traveled a lot in the US too. And I was like, I don't need one of those. And I thought coaching at that time, honestly, was for people who had problems. There's something wrong with you. And it was in the boardroom one day. This is the last part of my share with you on this. That it was a female coach. They paid a lot of money, and she was saying, Tom, you're winning awards, you're building a company, you're turning it around, but there's just some things you got to change because people they're falling in their chairs and they think it's all about you and your agenda sometimes and grandstanding. I didn't know what that meant, and I didn't get it. And so she kept pushing with this feedback. All of a sudden, this is what happened. I broke. It was a glass boardroom, and I had tears well up. I said, stop. And I said, you sound like my father. True words, exactly. I'll never forget it. And my dad was a military commanding officer. He was addicted to alcohol, very bad dude, left me when I was 12. But that arrogance, I shifted and started taking the coaching and changing then. But here's why. So my point is because I had so much pain built up inside about just feeling misunderstood. And I was hiding it, that finally I said, enough's enough. And I wanted to do something about it. So we admire that part of your story, that you actually listened to your mentor. Would it be fair to say, from people you coach, that there's a lot of people who won't take feedback? They don't want to change. Is that?
Yeah. And I think in my business, I get asked a lot, like, what's the ideal candidate? What do they look like, profile? And I always say they've got to ask for it. They have to know that they want to be better, because if I have to convince them, it's such an uphill battle that I probably don't even want to take the money.
Interesting. Let's get back into Plato's with the next thought here. So again, in the research I did, over 6 years, your company went from Vanstar to Inacom, pardon me, the pronunciations, of Compaq to Hewlett-Packard. Most people experience one acquisition in a career or changes like that, and they find it very stressful, right? Destabilizing.
Hmm.
You went through it repeatedly from what you said earlier. What does that do to a person's sense of identity and belonging at work, do you think?
What was interesting was that the like I said, the Vanstar component was just felt like a job to me.
Yeah.
And then we were acquiring companies, and I was a part of that team that would do integrations. And then we got acquired, and I felt safe because at the time I was focusing on government business, and that was new to Entercom, so I felt safe. And then when Compaq,
What was your role there? Was it executive
the
business development or something?
yeah, so they actually called it operations analyst, like area operations analyst, and I covered
I
the
see.
southeast of the U.S.
Okay.
And it was kind of a catch-all role, like a
Yeah.
troubleshooter or kind of
Yeah.
thing. And to be honest, probably one of my favorite jobs I've had in my career, because you got to fix things, and we were super empowered, and it was great to go in and fix things that had been
Yeah.
broken. I think also, to be truly fair, I think it was unfair to other people who had been maybe raising their hands for a while, saying, "Hey, we need help," and then
Yeah.
myself or one of my peers gets to come in and say, "Oh, this is what you need," and
Yeah.
also maybe didn't help my my ego component there at the time, right? That I got to be that person. But
Yeah.
the when Compaq acquired us, we were maybe a 3,000-ish kind of company. They only bought part of us, and then Compaq was huge. I don't know, 70 or 80,000 employees, and I think for a lot of people it was shocking to feel like you maybe knew a lot of the people that you worked with, but suddenly you knew no one. And
I see.
none of the people who made decisions were in our office or in another office. They were all in Houston or somewhere else. And I, in hindsight now, I think it was luck, but the organization I was a part of was seen as kind of vital to this new direction that Compaq was going. So we got scooped up and started feeling more like Compaq and less than a subsidiary. And then I saw some cool things. They were doing some cool things in Europe, and I just decided I really wanted to be a part of that. And I went to my boss's boss and I said, the next people you send, I want to be in that group. And so I rotated to Europe for a year while the stuff with Compaq was still sort of shaking out. And in Europe, I was just Compaq. There was never, our company hadn't been international, so we were just Compaq.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
that question is very valid, but for me, it didn't apply as much just because of the circumstances. But in Europe, I felt very American. I will say, I felt the outsiderness, and I had never been out of the country. I had to get a passport for that assignment, and it was very
Yeah.
amazing in hindsight. But it
Uh,
was a big
yeah.
change for
So
me.
I've used the word destabilizing. So everybody goes through change differently. You don't have to mention family names, but you have children now, I know. But were you married at that time? Were you going through these change? Okay.
No,
So
I was not married at the time.
okay. So that's interesting because I got married young, but I think it's harder to. So when I say destabilizing, I've been through 11 transactions, mergers, acquisitions. Some failed, many job changes, and part of that I discovered later from doing my own software, Crispin. It's that I was running from some of the work I did because of people I didn't feel comfortable working with. I actually
Hmm.
figured that out later. But what's interesting is when I was talking to you about identity, it's like I've heard guys tell me, and I went through this, that you're in this company, a company, you're now in the top level or close to the leadership, say. So you're in the know, you develop this identity, they see you, they hear you, all of a sudden, big merger. Now you're maybe down here, maybe you're not as well known, maybe the leadership's changed. And this is the part about your story I find fascinating. It's that we don't realize that we wear these performative masks and work is our identity. And then all of a
Hmm.
sudden that
Oh,
shifts and you went through a lot of that in a short period of time, which is amazing. Let me throw this out to you. You described going from, and correct me if I say this wrong, but going from overconfidence in your early career to imposter syndrome as you climbed. You called it over rotating, I think. And
hmm.
it's an honest way to put it. So what do you think that switch happened? Where do you think it happened? And why do you think so many high performing people go through exactly that same kind of arc?
Well, I think like being introspective and kind of knowing yourself is really core to being a very solid, effective, engaged leader. And so whenever we're either thrust into something new or we're given responsibility that's significantly different or significantly bigger than we had before, I actually think it's healthy for leaders to kind of to use that self-doubt, but have it in their like in their head. Okay, am I ready for this? Why did someone else trust me for this? And how do I just not screw it up, right? Because every time we're given something bigger, the stakes are higher for us, but also for the people in our own organizations who count on us as leaders to make good decisions, smart decisions, the right decisions.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
tech, like everyone else, is chaos, but it was back then it was buy a company, lay off people, buy a company, lay off people, and that was just the or
Sure.
just lay off people, right? And all the chaos of post-merger HP and multiple CEOs and some that were just around for months, and famously bad acquisitions and things. So we had a lot of churn, and I would see every time I was given something new, I would say, okay, I'm the right person, but then you start to see the work and wonder, okay, why me, why now? And I see that in a lot of leaders, and I used to, for me, I used to be very critical. This is at some point it's it's the Peter principle. I'm going to rise until I fail, right? And I
Hey, tell me what that looks like. What's you being critical? Paint a picture of words. What's one thing you might do engaging with somebody to be critical? Or are you talking about critical of yourself?
well, so I think critical of myself can also play out, right? Is because
Yeah.
if you're very critical of yourself, you start to build up these walls. And I said before, like when people are come across as very confident, a lot of times there's a lack of confidence kind of sitting inside there. And I think certainly in the beginning of my leadership journey, when I would be given something new that was bigger, and if I felt like, okay, I knew this was the next step, but now that I'm in it, I'm not sure. I think that lack of confidence for me would come out as criticism for others, because in the beginning of those things, I think one part of my MO was come in and say, obviously they brought me in to fix things, or obviously that you weren't the way you were doing it is wrong, so my way
Yeah.
must be right. And two things can be true, right? They could both, they could be right and they could be wrong, or vice versa, right? And trying to later in life, I learned it's so much better just to get a good lay of the land, just understand what's going on, who's who, let people be heard, all of
Yeah.
those things, because it also helps
Yeah.
get a better sense of my own self in those situations.
I'm laughing with you, man, because you'll get to know my sense of humor. So as you were doing that, demonstrating what that looked like, your face changed, and right at that moment with how you were speaking, I wanted to just punch you through the screen and go like, "If you were my boss, you asshole, I would have just decked you."
Oh,
It's
yeah,
like, and
yeah.
the thing is that we all find moments of that. I want to dig deeper into one thing about this arrogance, because we know we're all, well, I believe we're born golden children, and we're innocent. There's nothing in our brains, new thoughts, and there's a lot of influences on us that shape us. So what was it like to be a child? Or tell us anything about your parents. Like, who shaped you the most, mom or dad, and where did this overconfidence you think they're rooted from?
Well, so my theory is that we moved a lot when I was little. In the beginning, we were
Yeah.
talking about that I'm here in San Antonio, and this is my sort of second tour through Texas. But I've lived in a lot of places, and I've worked in a lot more places. But we moved a lot when I was younger, and I ended up going to 11 schools from
Whoa.
kindergarten through the end of high school.
Wow, that's a lot of
And
schools.
it's a lot of schools, and it meant that, I mean, just mathematically, like almost every year, I was the new kid. In fact, sometimes more than once in a year, and that definitely shaped, because it hardened a little bit. I had a sort of reflexive sarcasm, defensive sarcasm, maybe is a better way to say that. I think from a positive perspective, because I'm a real positive dude, it sharpened my wit. I don't necessarily, for sure, I think I'm funny. I think all guys think they're funny, but I think I'm funny. But
Well, I'm
my
glad as long as you
my
do.
nuance is fast, is quick wit, right?
Yeah.
And that's my mother, by the way. That's my mother's sense of humor was a
Are they
very.
still with you, your parents? Are
My,
they
my
still?
mother has passed. My dad's still around.
Okay. Well, God bless them both. So thanks. Yeah, and this begins. So everybody, you're seeing in Plato's Garden here. We're weaving this story. We're getting a really deep understanding of your character and what shaped you. And it's interesting because I had somebody else I met a year and a half ago who was like, it was like 8 schools, and it just blew my mind. And then there's others who I meet, and I was one of them, where you have all of a sudden children and you have a career that's ping ponging you all over, and sometimes I forgot. Like my daughter said something that really hurt my heart, and I told her this, and I worked through it later in life. But when I got my first traveling exec role, when she went to university, she went to the other side of the country, and I said, "Why are you going there?" She goes, "To get away from you as fast as possible." And then she said, "But you were never here, Dad," and it really hurt deep. And I just, and I said that to her later. I said, "Honey, but you know what happened, Crispin? My daughter graduated university back east in our country just a year ago, but she was working for an environmental firm while in last year, and they promoted her to interim executive director. And like, how's that for like a 27-year-old? I was so proud of her. But what happens is she calls me one day and she's stressing, right? And she says, "I got to prepare for a board meeting." And I'm going like, am I talking to my daughter here? And then you know what? Finally, she started seeing how out of control your life is when you're that level of leadership and people control your time. And I think that bonded us, because when we came back together. So I think definitely learning through your stories and through things like multiple schools, the stresses as a young child, or young child brain. How do we adapt to that? I mean, I was even thinking when you started telling me that could there be some hidden anger towards your parents, because hey, you're pulling me all over the place and new friendships. Not projecting. I don't think that that's the case, but unconsciously you just think things, right?
Well, so I'll tell you how I see it today. First of all, I believe happiness is a choice, and I choose to be happy. I think the experiences. So I'll say one more thing. We are all a product of our experiences, and I don't hate who I am or where I am today. So therefore, I wouldn't choose to change anything, right? Because I've landed where I am. The changing of schools, the moving around, the changing of environments from the deep south to Chicago suburbs, that sort of thing. I mean, it's made me very adaptable. And of course, now later in life, I have this unique trick of whenever I'm talking to anyone, it's like, "Oh, I went to school there. I used to work there," or whatever. So I have all these tendrils across the nation, and in some cases, other countries. So that's really, really, that's a really big positive. I think I didn't know anything different too. So what was normal for me wasn't necessarily normal for others. Now, the thing that I did notice later in life is, I would meet people and I would talk to them and they would introduce me to their friend. "Oh, I've known them since I was 6." And, my oldest friends were, a year of friendship or something. Right. So that was something that was really hard for me to grasp, as lifelong friendships, because that wasn't something that I had in that moment. And for sure, I have no friends from grade school or anything like that, because which grade school, which city.
And did you have siblings, like brothers, sisters?
Yeah, there's 3 brothers. I'm the middle child. From a timing perspective, my older brother got it worse because he went to 4 high schools.
Oh boy!
I think that would be. Yeah. I only had 2 high schools.
Yeah. Well, at least you had. Put in perspective, right? I think about what you said. My brain's going on this journey that, like, a large percentage of the world don't even have an opportunity to go to get their education, right? So you're a positive guy. I see that, which I like about you. But you're finding the positives in some of the challenges, which, by the way, truthfully, and you can tell me what you think of this, it's not easy to do for a lot of people, because we have this negative bias and the brain's keeping us safe all the time, and sometimes negative thinking just overtakes. And I think what you give to the world, if this, I assume, is your authentic you, how you are all the time, it's actually really cool to have somebody being able to see the positive. So I think that's awesome. This is Mezzo now. So we're going into sort of the sector that shaped your work, okay? And we'll get to the leadership foundation of that in a minute, your studio. So you've been on both sides of this, what I call a painful table, obviously, downsizing, moving around, changes, laid off at executive levels twice, I think. And then you've been the one making those calls many times too. It's a rare and complicated place to stand for many. So what does being on both sides of that table teach you about leadership that you simply can't learn any other way?
Well, I'll start with one of the most influential mentors in my life was a boss I had for a while at HP, Hewlett-Packard Enterprise, pardon me. And when we were going through a lot of layoffs, his advice to all of us, and to me in particular, was don't ever get good at this, meaning delivering this message. He wanted us always to feel it. And I think that's important. And his best core message was speak the way you would wish to be spoken to in this moment. And I that's kept with me, and that's advice I have given to every single leader that has been in my organization ever since then. So 10 years or so now that I've been giving that information out, or that advice out. And I would say, being on the other side of the table, one time I would say it was delivered in the more humane way, and the other time it was a little crueler, and I think it's uncomfortable, right? It doesn't matter who you are. It's uncomfortable, and the circumstances or economy or whatever that drives the decision. I think for me, the best thing is always just to be honest. If whatever is the reason that has driven this, it's do that. Now, the other practice I've always tried to do is as a leader, if I have any advance notice that's coming for people in my organization, if we can, we try to find a way to help them, whether that's help negotiate on their behalf or help them land somewhere else in the company if there's a
it's honorable, right? It made me think again, and more stories trading back and forth here. Everybody, Crispin Thompson here, founder of the Leadership Studio. It made me think about one merger. The other thing about mergers, which comes to mind too, is culture. And so you have your own definition. I'm sure you'll tell us. So for me, it's like values, beliefs, the way we are around here, kind of where we operate. And I was with a large telecom. It was like an $8 billion market cap telecommunication company here, our Canadian number 2. And I was headhunted away from a 14-year strong career in financial services. That's where I built my career. And very different culture. And they had just merged 2 companies together, 2 Western Eastern telecoms, and they had very different cultures. So they bolt them together. They're working with consulting people up here for change of management. And the CEO and his team are driving change like so fast. It was a unionized environment. It was crazy. And then all of a sudden they hit the wall because their revenue didn't grow and they were spending too much money on investment, and they fired 5,000 people. And it was crazy because I had to eliminate 340 people. I had to find a way to look at my own self and say, can you get rid of Tom's job? And one of the things that happened, I had not nightmares, but my wife will tell you, I learned about myself back then, Crispin, that I have trouble. It's an emotional gut thing because I did a personality assessment and I didn't realize one of my core parts of me is intimacy. I connect to people deeply. So I want to know you're okay. I tend to want to look after others first. But then I'm a CEO, and the other part of me is what I call power-based personality, where I can make tough decisions. But I didn't sleep for weeks. And then it happened again. I was in another company, and we had to outsource a team of young people, 40 people. And it was a call center. And one was pregnant. It was before Christmas, young folks. It was crazy. And so when I went through one of my changes in career, was downsized, I did some career counseling work, and I learned that about myself. And it shaped what I wanted to do in the future. I remember saying to Anna, my wife, I never want to be in a position again, because I've always been a turnaround executive where I have to fire people, where I have to change their lives. And some people can do it for a lifetime. It stuck with me, but I had to figure out why it was so painful. And it's not that I couldn't do it. I just value relationships with people, and I can't let those go as easy. So thanks for sharing that side of your career, because it triggered that for me too, to remember that. Let's get into stay in Mezzo here. You having fun?
Yeah, for sure.
But, I'm waiting for that sense of humor to come out and catch me off guard. So the Leadership Studio. So let's take full turn, put the screen back so people can see that beautiful image and logo. The Leadership Studio's whole approach, from what I understand at a high level, is built on an idea of be better than I was kind of thing.
Hmm.
It's a different foundation than most coaching methodologies that I understand, which tend to be built on other people's research or frameworks. So, what is it? What does it change when a coach is teaching from their own failures rather than from like these frameworks, textbooks? Just tell us anything you want.
For sure, it creates really authentic conversations. I especially if I'm directly engaged in coaching and we're going through a, role play or a practical exercise, I can talk specifically about here's where I failed, or here's 3 times when I thought this was going to be awesome, and here's all the ways in which it wasn't. So
Mhm.
I think it that authenticity is fantastic, and then people can it helps them open up, right? Because they can say, oh yeah, this is an area that I'm struggling in, or I truly want to be better in this. And what I really get fired up sometimes is when they say, and I just know I can't. And so that if they want to be better, and they're saying, I know I can't, but there's nothing that we can't change. If a leader
Yeah.
wants to be better, we can change everything. And then of course the best part about being a leader is if you know where you're not strong, you get to build teams that are strong where you're not, right? And then so helping people open their eyes and see the benefit of kind of building strong cohesion with teams of different viewpoints and diverse backgrounds, all these things.
Yeah.
There's real energy and joy when you get to that point in coaching.
Yeah, no, it's well said. I'm just putting my action camera. This is my studio cam. I already have a piece of paper with notes that it's like Crispinisms. I'm gonna have it full pretty soon. By the way, Crispin's a unique name. Obviously, I'm Canadian.
Mhm.
Is there an origin to that name? Because I've never heard the name.
So it's an English name, and there's a Catholic saint as well that was French, I believe, but it's
Yeah,
traditionally an English name. So in America, I have never met another Crispin, and it's
that's
actually my middle name. It's actually my middle name. My family is deeply, deeply Southern, so my actual first name is Ashley, which is not
Asheville.
always not always
Asheville.
very common. Yeah, Ashley, yeah, not always a super common male name, but in the
Yeah.
South, it still happens,
Ah,
and my
interesting.
family it sure did. So
Right. Yeah, that's cool. That's funny. My middle name is Ashok, Ashok, which was my dad's name. So Thomas is the legal one. But no, when I
mhm,
heard your name, and like I was born in the UK on the way here on a garrison. My dad was in the forces, but
mhm.
I thought that sounds kind of British Scottish kind of thing, and it's an interesting name. I like
Yeah,
it.
and we have a strong English and Scot background,
Yeah.
and when I was in the UK, when I lived in the UK, I met another Crispin there, and everyone who I worked with had known some other Crispin at some point. Like so, it was not seen as unique the way it is in
Yeah.
America when people sound like totally sounds like an adjective for bacon or something. So
So I wrote down on the paper, which I was showing you at a distance, the words "I can't," and it triggered something in me that I believe, and I wonder what you believe, that we're in a world where it's changing so fast. There's so much
hmm
pressure. Obviously, there's geopolitical issues we know about, but companies coping with generation changes, AI, automation. I mean, COVID really hurt a lot of businesses, and then we're past it, but you have to almost like reinvent. And like, I really wonder if a lot of leaders or a lot of people in general just are in their minds live in the "I can't." I'm so tired. I'm so worn out. I can't. And someone told me, and I think it's true through neuroscience, that whatever the words come out of your mouth or you think, that's what you believe. Your brain just takes it literally. And so,
hmm
how do you help somebody to move from "I can't" to "I can" and perform? Uh, because there's some psychology. There might even be mental illness and things wired in, traumas. Who knows, right?
hmm So I have a lean background as well. So I was a lean executive, meaning Lean Six Sigma. So that's a process
Okay.
improvement framework and methodology. And one one thing that I pull from that sometimes is rather than just kind of take everyone down some boring process path, you're always looking for improvement. It's a process improvement methodology. It's not about yours is broken, it has to be fixed. It's how do we make it better, and it's incrementally better. So one thing I like to ask people is if they tell me we can't do it, I can start with the easy question is, well, what can we do? And that's a nice little nudge toward
Sure.
getting them away from that negativity. And then sometimes I'll ask the question that I feel like someone surely has asked before, but you just ask them, well, what would it take to do it? If we
Yeah.
can't do it, if you're thinking that we can't do it, what would you need? Is it technology? Is it people? Is it investment? What is it? And it doesn't matter if it's $1 billion or $1 or you need 100 people. Just tell me, and start to free up. And you talk about the neuroscience of this, the psychological. I mean, that's just giving them the permission to say, here's what I need, or to ask. Back to Crispinisms. One of my Crispinisms is you almost never get what you don't ask for.
Yeah,
Sometimes we're lucky, but if you ask for something, you're so much more likely to have a chance at getting it. And so giving people the permission to state what they need or say what they need is such a good way to get them off of that negativity slide, or that can't do, won't do kind of mentality.
Wow, the cam's back on for a reason. More on the list of Crispinisms. So as you were talking, I wrote down psychological safety. These are buzzwords. I don't like jargon because people can't understand it. So I'm going to explain it. You know what this is. I wrote psychological safety, trust, and then you said something about permission. That's the coolest thing, because as an example, when you shared, and I honor this because a lot of people won't publicly, but when you shared that you had a bit of this arrogance, or people saw you that way, and you had feedback you had to change, and you have to want to change. Mm-hmm. That gave me permission. If you remember, I told you the story about the boardroom coach. Mm-hmm. It was in that moment, Crispin, and I'm a straight shooter. I wouldn't have said that if you hadn't have told me your story and given me permission. So I like to say that you give me permission to see a part of me in your story. And so I shared mine back with you. I wouldn't have done that. So why I wrote psychological safety, it's a big thing here, that when you're talking about I can't, you give people permission to just try, what can we do? Tell me what you think, but if it's not a psychological safe, in other words, I can make mistakes talking to you, Crispin. I can say the wrong thing. He's not going to judge me. Like, if you don't create that space between us, I ain't going to get to, I think I can. I think I'll try some things, or even tell you, because I'm so afraid of you. So is that true too? About, it's one thing to ask people to say I can and move them there, but what about leaders who are toxic, who are just, they create fear, and people then shut down?
Yeah. So I think there's no one leadership style that is going to be successful in all areas. And while we would never want a toxic leader in any environment, we would never choose that to be something that we allow to be pervasive. I think we also would admit that in certain situations, you need the drill sergeant. You need the person who comes in and says, it is my way or no way, and get out of the way so that we can get done. I use this example a lot. I had an individual in my organization a bunch of years ago who was that way, was just leaving bodies behind them with everything. And I had to coach as much as I could, and you can only change people as much as they're willing to be changed. And I would see this person adapt and then reflex back. And so eventually I had to kind of coach them into a different organization, that was because it was so misaligned to my style. But if I had a technology-based project that had to be delivered tomorrow, come hell or high water, I would hire that person because they would get it done. And I would just know that I would have to do the psychological cleanup behind, with people and attitudes and just the sheer audacity of the words that would be used. Yeah. But sometimes it's needed.
Yeah, and I see that now. You're teaching us something here. Hey, everybody, Crispin Thompson, founder of the Leadership Studio. You're teaching us something. It's interesting, just to riff on it for a minute, because it opened me up, that I've had bosses, and quite frankly, when I finally adjusted my own character limitations that I was telling you about being arrogant, being assertive. And by the way, my dad, I told you, was a commanding officer in the military. So guess why I kind of was leading that way, arrogant, insensitive. That's kind of what my brain saw my dad do, right? And I never meant to hurt people with my action that way. But where I was going with this is I respect people. I've had bosses that are very tough, hard driving, do as I say. And I've respected them because I respect authority. And somebody said to me once, you can't be, how's it go? You can't be in authority until you can be under authority. Meaning you have to be able to accept someone saying, I need you to do this, Tom. I need you to do that. And the other part of it is, some of those bosses I'm talking about that were really good, that plowed the road, they had an incredible way of showing empathy or making you feel
Mhm.
seen and heard. Like they could just it's like their orientation of how they communicate was tough, but man, they did things that made me go, okay, he loves me. He's still he's appreciating me. Little things like Tom, I know you're going to work till midnight. I know you're going to have to do all this stuff, but you know what? I really appreciate you. And if you say that to me, Crispin, I appreciate you. I'll work harder and longer. So I think you're right. I see absolutely the need for the styles.
And I think there are individuals who unfortunately don't understand that accountability and empathy are connected, should be connected, right? But they disconnect them. I'm going to hold you accountable, and
I see.
damn the torpedoes kind of thing. But that, like you said, just I appreciate you, I see you, I hear you.
Yeah.
I think if there was a lesson that I think that was there to be learned during COVID, it was that because we're no longer in front of our teams very often, at best it was like this on camera, and often it wasn't even that, that we as leaders should listen for intent. We rather, if someone comes across and they say things that are unnecessarily aggressive or perceived as rude or whatever, what if we just stopped, took a beat, and thought about, they didn't mean it to sound like that. What do we think they meant? And just choose to act on that versus how they were, because COVID put so much stress on all of us in so many ways, seen and unseen, right?
Sure.
And that was the lesson that I took and started kind of coaching others is, listen, what do we think they meant? Just ignore what they said and how they said it. Take out of that, what do we think they meant? And act on that. Because maybe like they were having to work from home and they've got 5 kids and 2 dogs, and this was never part of their plan. They loved being in an office, and now they have to deal with this, and they have all of that plus all of this and everything else. And there are stresses in people's lives that we can't control as leaders, but we shouldn't pretend don't exist. And
yes, absolutely.
I love coaching people is ask your team, how are they? And then care about the response. Holy cow. Give a shit. Pardon my French, but just care, right? It seems so easy, but it is a great differentiator.
Yeah, and I read some articles or did some research. I found that are you born an empath? Are you born knowing empathy or how to do it? And the research said no. You're either born to be empathic or not, but you can learn it. You can learn the skill. So if I see my daughter fall down and skin her knee, and somebody can say, when that happens, there's blood and pain, you go hug her and you say, are you okay? Sorry that happened. There's some people who will see their kid fall down, skin their knee, and they'll just go, you shouldn't have been running so fast. And they just they cannot show any empathy. So it's a very deep point you're teaching me that I agree with that part of that. Yeah, empathy, but I don't think a lot of people are there yet. The COVID thing too is, I can imagine in your leadership, right, where you're coaching people, you're still seeing people struggling to adapt to the new way we work. I still can't figure out how to lead over this, right? It's so hard over Microsoft Teams or something to lead, because we never learned how to do that. Interesting. Okay, let's get back into Plato's here. We're getting to the last segment, which is more the macro, but one more in micro. Your work at the intersection of leadership, I'm suggesting, at the intersection of leadership and AI, specifically helping leaders harness AI without needing to be technical experts. A lot of leaders are quietly terrified of this conversation. So what's the real fear underneath the AI resistance you see, in your opinion? What do you tell people?
Well, the first thing I tell people is you can't fight it. This is if ever there was a train that you have to get on board, not stand in front of, this is the one, right? Because everyone is making investments and bets, and the technology is not just running or leaving; it's screaming forward so quickly. The other thing is especially if you're a leader is start making some bets. The longer you wait to try to learn or to try to invest, whether that's money or time or energy or emotion, whatever, the further behind you'll be. And everyone else, big, small, whatever, is trying this right now. No one, by the way, I think has any exact model on which is going to be the right frame of technology or which is going to be the exact right path for all of these things, because just look at a year ago, 2 years ago, how things were then, where we thought they'd be today, and we're not there. Like, it's so many things are either so far advanced or still progressing at slower paces in some cases than we thought. And so get off the seat, make an investment, and start to try these things. The other side is, because so much of these are kind of learning models, you do not have to be a coder. You don't have to have a code background. You can learn, you can engage, and most often these are tools that you engage with conversationally, and you can learn conversationally. And so that's kind of new and unique, super different from where things were 5, 6, 7 years ago. But the other thing is the fear of change, right? Because we always are worried about what's going to be the change, how is it going to impact economy, my company, my organization, my team, myself, like from macro to micro, right? And I think we have to accept right now that there will and could be changes that come into economies or industries that we cannot foresee, right? And so we've got to be adaptive. We've got to roll with change. We've got to be willing to accept that there are things out there that we cannot predict, and that is a very uncomfortable position to put yourself in, right? Because
absolutely.
It's psychological discomfort that's going to lead to physical, right? The more you think about that, the sicker you're going to feel inside yourself. But
that's an interesting point. I just wrote down the fear of change. For some reason, the word age came out on the page, and then learning. I want to just take this off the screen and show you. In the back of my studio, you see just above the blue light, there's like a brain. It's a model of a brain. Welcome to Mr. Brain. I use them when I sometimes go out in public speaking. You might know, hopefully you know from looking at, where'd you go? I had a brain injury at 18. I fell on my head in the bathtub. I was seriously injured. It took me 5 years to recover. And I started exploring neuroscience. That's why I have a passion for the brain. Anyway, going forward, what I learned is the brain only uses about 20% of our body's electrical, because it's electrical energy. And so we get fatigued. And tell me when you think about all this when I give it back to you. But I was taught as a leader, multitask. And yet the truth is the brain can only do one thing at a time and focus on one thing at a time well. And then it was like, let's have 2-hour meetings. It was like the brain actually needs about a brain rest, even if it's 2 minutes, deep breathing, whatever, every 45 minutes, because it gets fatigued, especially. So the last piece of the age, I was thinking about ageism and age. And I learned this from the therapists who were helping me change my brain. They were saying that, as you get older, Tom, the brain's lazy and it's reflexive. So like if you go get a cup of tea, right, you know where everything is, you can do it in your sleep almost. But man, if as you get older, if you have to relearn something, all these new neural pathways, and so I'm feeling that the world is changing. There's all this stuff you talked about, but it's harder for people to relearn. And I think this is one of the things some of my friends struggle. They won't tell me the truth. They don't even know what AI is, but when they finally learn how it can help them, but they're scared to death about it because it's harder. The younger people are, but some of my older friends, it's harder to relearn. It's like, I can't do that. What do you think about age and learning?
Well, I think if we stop learning, then everything gets harder, right? If we don't try to actively exercise our brains, whether that's reading or trying to learn some new task, or just we should always try to be improving, try to be learning, because the minute you stop, like you're making this point, the minute you stop, then everything becomes harder. It's just like regular exercise. If you exercise regularly and then you stop for a few years, doesn't matter how many times you did it before, when you start again, it will be hard, right? Your body will have forgotten, and you'll have literal atrophy, in the same way that we can have like neural atrophy, basically. These things become harder. I think that there's an attitudinal side of this too, right? With AI is scary and for reasons, right? Everything in life now is big or scary or fast, like just how things come at us, and this is one of those topics that that is made more so, right? Because of the sensationalism of the way things are reported, and it's easy to think about. And movies and things over the last 20 years have not made it any easier either. So I also think that because it's scary, too few people are looking into some of these things, and they should, because none of these things are particularly difficult to learn.
No, they're not. Yeah.
But if you just stand there and say, I'm scared of it, then if you just stand there and say you're scared of it, then you'll continue to not be able to learn and get better at it too. So
you just heard the AI bell go off. Here I was coaching you to turn your phone down, and my little ringer.
No worries.
Sorry about that. So many things when you talk about AI. There's a really good movie. I don't know if you saw it. Chris Pratt's in it. You got to watch it if you.
Oh, it just came recently. This one, right?
Yeah. My wife and I watched it. Yeah, my wife and I watched it. It's about this guy who's accused of murdering his wife, and he has to go before an AI court. And the clock's running. I think the judge is like a robot or whatever, AI, and he has 90 minutes to prove he's innocent, or they hang him. And it was the most fascinating thing. It's a really good movie. I'm not going to say any more, but I want to talk about AI for a sec, because something else you made me think of. You know what I learned about when I started using AI? And by the way, for the people out there, large language models, AI, there's like Claude, ChatGPT, Google. There's a Google
Gemini,
one. I use
Gemini.
So I use 3, but I took a course on how to prompt. So can I just say this, just to be a little explanatory for my audience, that if I'm a leader and I'm asking Crispin, hey Crispin, I'd like you to go and do this project. I'm prompting you. I'm asking you to do something. What I didn't realize is if I go into my AI, if I don't prompt it properly, it makes all sorts of, it hallucinates, comes up with things I didn't ask it, sometimes mistakes. And I had this aha moment when you're talking about that. Me collaborating with AI is actually showing me and teaching me some of the biggest flaws in leadership. Because how many times, I remember this even being a leader, I asked my executive assistant or a team member, can you do this? Blah, 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 right? A week later, they come back and you go, what's this? You forgot to do this, you forgot to this. And you know the step I missed? I didn't say, can you play it back to me and tell me what you think I need you to do? I just want to make sure I got it. And by the way, if you get stuck, I'll give you okay to come and just say, hey, Tom, can I talk to you for a minute? That's what working with AI is. It's made me a much stronger communicator and leader, because I'm critically thinking more on how to communicate. And that's the last thing I'll say on that is a lot of people have said, get out of your own way. AI is here to stay as a tool, but humans got to communicate with it. What do you think?
No, I absolutely 100% agree. I don't know that this ever came up in any of our prior conversations, but I wrote a book last year called The Human Advantage: Emotional Intelligence in the Age of AI, right? So I specifically believe there is a very forceful presence for leaders right now until AI can do even more things. But the human element is what's going to continue to make everything great and fascinating and functional. With AI, continue to take away maybe the rote, repetitive, kind of easier work until it gets even more robust along the way. But this whole notion of prompting, like how we talk to it, how do we ask the right questions, that was super fascinating to me. And you talk about one thing that continues to frustrate me, this notion of AI hallucination. And kudos to whomever came up with that particular term, because it's not hallucinating, it's lying, right? It's making stuff up, right? That's true. That's exactly. It's a great marketing term. Oh, it's just hallucinating, but it makes those things have driven me up the wall.
Yeah.
So about a year or so ago, I was trying to build a component for Leisure Studio, an AI coach to kind of be an adjunct. So in between coaching sessions, they'd have to go with. And I was trying to build, and I'm not even though I was in tech for a long time, I was never in technological roles. That's not my background. And so I was leaning on these AI models to kind of help me and coach me and guide me. And at one point, I was on iteration 90 or something or whatever, and it's 1 o'clock in the morning, and I'm a morning guy, so 1 o'clock in the morning is not good for me. And I'm sending screenshots to the tool, and it's telling me, and finally it says, "Oh no, you should do this." And I was like, but you've seen 90 other screenshots of this and you've never ever said that. And it was like, oh no, I just missed that, or I thought you meant that. I was like, you were the one that told me, right? I had been more mad at my AIs as employees than I would ever have been at a human employee, ever. So it's real interesting how things play out these days.
Well, I wholeheartedly connect on all of what you said. It's true line. I just finished my doctorate degree. It was a long journey. After my brain injury, I decided to do something deep. And I was using AI a little bit to collaborate in the, like, in research, you have to come up with facts, and some of the stuff that was coming out, even citing articles that never existed. Like, it was just like my eyes were wide open, and I'm like, I think I'm using this wrong because it only has so much historical information. So everybody, with Crispin Thompson here, you're really teaching us a lot here today, and this piece about the AI has been very helpful. I think everybody, we may have Crispin back again. I didn't know. Why didn't I know about your book? Did you publish it?
Yeah, it's published, but it was late last year, and
okay.
And I think you and I had a lot of conversations over weeks and weeks.
Yeah,
it felt like, so it might have just been
coincidental. So I'll have to get it. I'll have to get a signed copy from you. The reason why is because what I usually do is weave it into the shows, and then I promise if I find value, I promise to give an Amazon review and reveal it, which I would have done for you. But I think that's really cool because that builds everybody, the credibility builds here with Crispin, because when you become an published author, you put your thought leadership out there in a different way. So good for you, which takes us to almost the last segment here, which is the unwritten chapters. So it's kind of modeled around this whole topic of books. So it's funny how we ended up getting there. So let me just put this out to you. No, hold on. We'll go to this one. If you were to write your next book, based on something in the world you want to do that you haven't done yet or whatever, what might it be about?
I hate that this sounds back to, we started at the beginning about ego, but if I write the next book, and I kind of want it to be about kind of leadership lessons that I learned and how they apply today. I really want to talk about, just nakedly talk about, here's when I did something stupid. Here's what I learned in the moment. Here's what I've learned later, and here's what I do now, and kind of go through like my 10 biggest lessons and kind of go through there. But just do that, yeah.
I'll just give you some cheap applause there. I think that's a great idea, because if I think about my daughter, 28, and all the next gens, gosh, if somebody would have given me a book like that before I went up in my career, it would have been really invaluable. I think the other thing that came to mind is, and I'm going to hold you accountable to write that book, so you're going to come back when you've written the book.
Gladly.
And we'll talk about it. But what's interesting is, I think personally that if you hadn't faced your own limitations of this arrogance and taken feedback, if you hadn't become authentic and real and gone through that change, I don't think you could have done this work and taught people. I think you wouldn't have found the lessons. You just can't when you're arrogant, because you just can't. You don't dig.
Yeah.
Search for other things. So congratulations on that. This is the last question, then we're going to give you an award. Did you know you were getting an award?
I did not.
Okay, well, when I ask you that again, you go, yeah, Tom told me. So this one is called the Warrior Torch. And we ask the last guest to leave the question for this guest. And we don't tell them who you are or what gender. And this is the question they want me to ask. And they'll watch this back, which is... All right. If the leader watching this right now is standing at the edge of their own inflection point, the same one you stood at, what do you want them to know before they take the next step?
Oh, that's a great question. I think a lot about like the journey that I've been on that's taken me to here. And so if I was to be kind of the uninformed person, because standing at the inflection point, but undecided, I would want to tell myself, if I could, that it's going to be okay. Yeah. Whatever decision you make is going to be the right decision, and you're going to make it the right decision. I think that ownership path, owning your own decisions, is such a powerful kind of psychological element that if you believe in yourself, others will believe in you too, and you'll be able to carry yourself on that journey.
Yeah, that's right.
I wish I would have known that 15, 18, 20 years ago,
Sure.
right? That it's okay to just
Yeah.
leap. It's okay.
Yeah. And what do they say about hindsight? And by the way, as I'm a faith-based guy, so by the Bible taught me, we're all flawed. And everybody makes mistakes. So you got to be prepared to know if you take a decision, you own it. That's the wrong one or a mistake. So what? That's how you get to I can. Is by
and be true to yourself. Don't give up.
For sure.
What good is having all the riches in the world if you give up your soul?
Well said. All right, man. So we're going to give you an award here. So I'm going to put another camera on the screen, and you've seen my action cam here. So have you heard of challenge coins?
Yeah, I have.
Oh, good. Some people have, some haven't. So I'm just going to read you. This comes with it. So you're getting an award. The history of them is challenge coins surfaced during World War I era. The practice of carrying a coin designed specifically for a unit was popular with the Army Special Forces. Carrying the coin at all times and presenting it when challenged to prove affiliation with that unit resulted in a number of consequences for those who could not produce their coin. And the most popular required the coinless soldier to buy a round of drinks. And apparently this still continues. Mm-hmm. But I've seen people who collect these. And my dad was in AA for 22 years before he passed away. And he was in the military too. And he had coins. First responders, everybody who gets these, they're honorable. So when I started the show, I wanted to have a coin for the 1%. People have taken something in their character, turned it, created something to make an impact in the world. And that's why I vetted you hard to come on, because it's not easy to get this coin. But there it is. So that's handmade, painted, and crafted in the U.S. There's the show logo. But on the back is the narrative of my show is built on the hero journey, which is finding, in times of pain, finding something, going on a journey, come back, and then teach something. So welcome to the Quiet Warrior community.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, congratulations. So we'll get your address offline. I sent one out, by the way, to your beautiful country, and somebody in the U.S. Postal opened it up and stole the coin. And this guy in Philadelphia goes, Tom, he said your envelope showed up, but the coin was gone.
Terrible.
So I'm finding new ways. It happens in Canada too. But I'd have to take a poke at your postal service. So I'm trying to find new ways.
No worries. We all do too.
Yeah. So, hey, listen, on that note, I'll give you the last word. Tell people where they can, anything you haven't said yet you want to say, or where they can get a hold of you and your platform, your work.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you for all of this. Thank you for the time. Thank you for the conversation. Easiest way to get a hold of me, I think the two easiest ways. First of all, you can find me on LinkedIn at Crispin Thompson, or you can find the Leadership Studio on LinkedIn, or our website, which is leadership-studio.com. And you can get a hold of us in any of those ways. And we really want to help leaders that want to be better. We want to help you bridge potential to performance.
That's awesome. Hey, on the Leadership Studio, is your clientele, do you just focus on certain sectors, countries, or are you?
No, we have primarily focused on the U.S. And I have a strong connection to part of Mexico as well. So we do some stuff there, but we would gladly. Oh, and I should say Canada. We actually did a coaching in Canada too. So I'm happy to do wherever the work is. But it's less about industry and it's more about, I think our sweet spot is leaders that are being stretched into new roles, particularly early executives or early VPs. I think those are the ones that really get the best benefit.
Well, that's awesome, man. So keep sharing your successes and the limitations in those stories, because it's transformative. And everybody, thank you for being here today on the Quiet Warrior Show. And to Crispin, listen to his story, listen to this back, find the true you, the passion like you hear out of him, and live that life that you deserve and desire. And we'll see you all again next week on the Quiet Warrior Show. We'll see you back again, Crispin.
Thank you.
All right. Oh yeah, just stand by. We're going to take it offline. Well, we still got people watching us, which is